thought of Oahu in Hawaii as their own personal treasure island.
John and Julianne Dimitrion were very much into the material trappings of the ultra-rich.
A beautiful home with views of the South Pacific, a fleet of luxury cars, a booming real estate business, designer wardrobes, and a shining image as God-fearing pillars of the community.
They had all the outward signs of being extremely successful.
But the Dimitrions were really wolves in chic clothing, the masterminds of a scam the FBI says ripped victims off for more than $1 million.
They never met a fraud they didn't like.
Except for their fateful last one.
I got scammed.
This time, they picked the wrong victim, a feisty small businesswoman who would help bring their fool's paradise crashing down around them and land them both on the FBI's most wanted list.
They had disappeared off the face of the earth.
FBI headquarters, Honolulu.
They haven't split apart. And so, do you have any other thoughts about something we should be doing?
FBI Special Agent Tom Simon is working one of the most baffling and bizarre cases he's ever encountered.
It's extremely unusual in the FBI, and I've been doing this for 20 years, to find a routine financial fraud spin into a domestic extremist investigation coupled with an international fugitive manhunt.
Agent Simon picks up the story when the Dimitrions married 10 years ago, painting a portrait of a young couple who only love one thing more than themselves and each other, and that's money.
It wasn't just important for them to be wealthy, it was really important for them to make sure that everybody knew how wealthy they were.
John, now 34, had been born into privilege as the son of a successful doctor who gave him the best of the best, including a private education at the same prestigious high school that counts President Obama among its alumni. And 32-year-old Julianne, who was raised in a working-class family, craved what she'd never had: wealth. The Dimitrions' shared lust for money and every luxury it could buy literally becomes their religion.
They have this odd philosophy that somehow they are destined by God to be rich, and the harder they pray, the richer they will get.
Even if it means being heartless and dishonest, which Agent Simon says they were from the very beginning.
You have to understand that John and Julianne are con artists, right? They're very good at talking people into doing things that are against their self-interest.
One of the Dimitrions' divinely inspired scams to make easy money fast was a light bulb they claimed magically purified the air and cured diseases.
They were going on TV into home shows trying to sell this phony light bulb.
And that wasn't their only bright idea to con people out of their money.
They were involved in all sorts of different scams.
But the most lucrative one is a real estate company they form called Mortgage Alliance, with opulent suites in a downtown office tower looking out across Honolulu. And this time, their marketing gimmick is promising to save distressed homeowners from losing their properties to foreclosure.
And they used that company to rip off a lot of people.
The Dimitrions make an ill-gotten fortune that they use to build the life of their dreams, which includes his and her Maseratis and other luxury cars, along with the finest designer outfits and most frivolous accessories money can buy.
She actually at some point became addicted to buying expensive lingerie.
Julianne even tries to get the government to pick up the tab.
She went to her CPA and asked him if she would be able to put that lingerie down as an expense for tax purposes because she wore it under her clothing while she was at work.
But there is misguided method to the Dimitrions' money madness.
They tried to spend the money as quickly as possible, creating the illusion of more wealth to bring in other customers.
The FBI says they also present an image as deeply religious, active members of a local evangelical Christian church.
But the Dimitrions, I believe, really used it as an opportunity to strengthen their bona fides in the community and make people think that they were, in fact, good, upright Christians who would never steal from them. And boy, were those people wrong who believed that.
The Dimitrions even prey upon the congregation they pray with.
I thought they were really good Christian people.
And the Dimitrions figure Laura Christo for a sucker.
Laura got into it because she thought she could help a fellow church member stay in their home.
John and Julianne Dimitrian have money to burn, which they do on every luxury that catches their greedy eyes.
The Dimitrions were actually pretty corny as far as their public presentation of their wealth.
And that money they burn comes from distressed homeowners they also burned in a mortgage scam that promised to save them from repossession.
We knew that they were spending that money on sports cars and luxury items, and none of this money was actually going to keep people in their houses.
FBI Special Agent Tom Simon has already been quietly investigating the Dimitrians, but doesn't have the evidence to bust them until he hears from one of their angry victims, Laura Cristo.
And Laura was so offended, she actually came to the FBI and told us about the Dimitrians' plan, and she offered to help.
I told them I can get all the information that you want.
Laura is a member of the same fundamentalist Christian church the Dimitrians attend, and the couple are seen as God-fearing pillars of the community who would be trusted with people's money and their homes.
They definitely used their church affiliation to harvest victims for their frauds. They were going after other fellow evangelical Christians to try to steal everything they owned.
And the Dimitrians hit the daily double with Laura and another member of the congregation who was facing foreclosure on their home.
Laura Cristo was a good-hearted woman who wanted to help out.
And Laura has the means to do so as the owner of a successful Mexican restaurant. She has excellent credit that makes her a perfect target for the Dimitrians' scam.
I thought everything was legitimate.
The Dimitrians convince Laura that they can use her good credit to buy the house and their company will make the payments. That way, the other member of the congregation facing foreclosure will be able to stay in their home.
When we went to the office with the Dimitrions, it appeared to be everything normal, very luxurious office, everybody doing their jobs, everybody looked professional.
There is also spiritual reassurance.
The very first thing that you would see when you walk in that reception was a picture that read, "With our help and God's help, we will make your dreams come true."
Instead, the Dimitrians' racket makes Laura's life a nightmare that will leave her with a foreclosed $250,000 home she never thought she even owned, and her good credit in ruins.
I received a phone call from a mortgage company saying that I haven't paid, for the house in the past 4 months. And I go, wait a minute, I'm not supposed even to be paying for that house.
Laura realizes she's been ripped off and calls the FBI.
What actually happened was the Dimitrians took the profits from that sale and used the money for themselves, and then the original people that Laura was trying to help out got put out on the streets.
Just like others who had fallen prey to the same scam that Agent Simon says made them $1.3 million.
They don't care about leaving a family homeless and stranded.
Laura is so angry she agrees to wear a wire and confront John Dimitrian over the foreclosure on the house while Agent Simon listens in.
I was just served yesterday with a foreclosure notice, and really makes me mad because I'm not a liar. And I have all the documents here proving that what I disclosed, it's not what you guys put in the paper.
John plays dumb.
I just don't know anything about your loan right now because you're coming in here and you're yelling at me, so I'm trying to figure out what's going on.
Well, of course I'm yelling at you because this is a big lie.
I had no knowledge about how your transaction was put together or perceived. So what happens now because he's foreclosing on your house?
Well, I wish I knew, and that's why I'm here, because if you guys don't help me out of this one, I'm gonna go right now straight to the FBI and make a big storm over there and make it explode. That's what I'm gonna do.
Now John gets combative.
Don't threaten me because I'm
not frightening you. I'm telling you what I'm gonna do because on top of being...
I know, but I'm saying I'm here to help you, okay? I'm here to help you, and the reason why is all this crap is hitting hard now. The reason why you can't threaten me is because I already know the FBI is all over me.
Then John and wife Julianne get busted and plead guilty to mail fraud and money laundering.
Laura was extremely brave. She was willing to actually help us gather the evidence that could put them away.
But what happens while the Dimitrians are free on bail awaiting sentencing stuns everyone.
The Dimitrians had apparently disappeared into thin air.
John and Julianne Dimitrians' high life of luxury in Honolulu has suddenly become a paradise lost.
They were basically sleeping on air mattresses in their parents' houses.
Their conviction on mail fraud and money laundering charges for ripping off distressed homeowners has toppled their crooked mortgage company and taken the Dimitrions from riches to rags almost overnight.
They had nothing left.
And a packed federal courthouse in Honolulu is in for a big surprise at their sentencing.
The FBI agents are there, the prosecutors there, the judges there, the defense attorneys there. Everybody was there except for John and Julianne Dimitrion.
Didn't seem to be in court. I mean, I looked all over the courtroom. In fact, I think I called his name out a couple of times. Now he wasn't there. John and his wife were no-shows, and I had no explanation.
The Dimitrions had surrendered their passports, and nobody expected them to bolt.
The idea of them leaving and taking off and becoming fugitives was unthinkable.
But fugitives they have become.
So the judge issues a bench warrant and the fugitive hunt begins.
By the time we actually got to them, they had spent through all the money. They were broke.
Agent Simon is confident he will soon capture them close to home.
These are people who didn't have money and didn't have passports to really go anywhere else.
Agent Simon scours Honolulu and the island of Oahu looking for the couple, distributing wanted posters everywhere he goes.
And obviously, if you see them, you just give me a call.
Okay.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.
He remains convinced the Dimitrions are still on the island. He just can't find them.
Now, this is Oahu. It's an island. You can only drive so far on it. So once we learned that they had not gotten on a plane, by checking the flight manifest for all the flights leaving Oahu recently, we had a real mystery on our hands. Where the heck were the Dimitrions?
Agent Simon enlists the help of the media.
We were getting on local television here and getting their faces out there saying, hey, does anyone know where the Dimitrions are? And every single one of those steps was coming up empty.
Some of his fellow FBI agents think the Dimitrions may have committed suicide.
I never really bought it because the Dimitrions were nothing if they're not narcissists. These people were so in love with each other and they felt that they were ordained by God to be rich and famous in the community. People like that generally don't kill themselves.
Hi, Mrs. Smith. My name's Tom Simon. I'm an FBI special agent in Honolulu, Hawaii. How are you today?
As news of the Dimitrions going on the lam spreads, Agent Simon starts getting tips they may have been sighted on the mainland.
Where do you think you saw the Dimitrions? Okay, you believe it was at the Target in Niles, Illinois?
None of the tips from the mainland pan out until Agent Simon gets an unexpected lead from an FBI informant that is almost too wild to believe.
She contacted the FBI to tell us their story, and it was an amazing story, and it was nothing we saw coming.
The informant says the Dimitrions have joined an anti-government group called Sovereign Citizens, which counted among its members Terry Nichols, Timothy McVeigh's co-conspirator in the Oklahoma City bombing. Other Sovereign Citizen members also shot dead 2 Arkansas cops during a traffic stop.
They don't believe that the laws of the U.S. apply to them, and they find themselves getting involved in all sorts of different financial frauds.
And John Dimitrion manages to con them too,
convincing them that when they overthrow the U.S. government, that he would be a suitable Secretary of Treasury for this new Republic of the United States of America that they would form, to such an extent that they actually chartered a plane to get them away from Hawaii in a pretty elaborate scheme.
John poses as a medical patient being taken to the mainland, and Julianne disguises herself as his nurse.
His wife was wearing a rented nurse's outfit at an area where private jets come and go, and he was lying on a gurney, with an IV in his arm.
The Dimitrions were flown to Utah, then driven to a secret hideout in Alabama, but they haven't been seen or heard from since, and they've now been on the lam for 7 years.
It's clear to us that they've since moved on. We just don't know where.
But Agent Simon is certain of one thing.
Wherever they are, I know in my heart that they're stealing from people.
And he believes the Dimitrions will eventually trip themselves up.
The idea that somehow the FBI is going to get tired of this manhunt and go away is preposterous. We're the FBI, that's not what we do.
Since Crime Watch Daily first reported this story, the FBI says it's been flooded with sightings from around the world. Sightings of the Dimitrions in Florida, San Francisco, Oregon, even as far away as the Philippines. So far, these tips have not panned out, but the FBI says it's confident they will one day bring this couple to justice.
And they're hoping a $10,000 reward helps as well. If you have any information on the whereabouts of the Dimitrions, you're asked to call your local FBI office.